But once again, that whole central theme of education, Michael, and certainly about the Declaration of Independence, for those that are not aware, that anesthetic copy of the Declaration of Independence is here today. There's only 2 known in the world, so educate yourselves about that just a little bit. Our next speaker is a good friend of mine, and he's going to talk about the Libertarian Party, that is Jason Shirre. And we're going to start off with the 40th anniversary of the Libertarian Party video. 2 weeks from now, the Libertarian Party will have its national convention in Las Vegas. Gary Johnson seems to be the presumptive presidential candidate, the 2-term governor of New Mexico. And I think you're going to start seeing another peak in the Libertarian Party. On that note, I want to introduce a very good friend of mine, somebody I've known for years, a great spokesman for the Libertarian Party, put a lot of time in running for Senate, and also under the Clean and Fair Election Program in New Jersey, was the first independent to qualify under that. So without further ado, oh Michael, there you are. Without further ado, we're going to introduce Jason Shirre.
You know something is incredibly wrong, and I know exactly how you feel. You see the things around you and you just can't believe it. Well, I want to let you know I see them too. You try to tell others about what's going on and they refuse to hear. Well, I hear it also. All of us in this room are joined by a common bond. It might transcend family, friends. You might have more in common with somebody across the United States than somebody sitting right next to you. And that bond is liberty. It's a belief that each person is free. A belief that each person has inalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of their own happiness. But you notice something about it. You notice that as we go through life now, it gets harder and harder to attain that goal. And the reason being is the powers that be want to control you. Now, you've known it for years. You felt it. It's on the tip of your tongue. It's like a ringing in your ear. But what do you do about it? Well, the answer to that is action. And that's what I'm looking for you to do today, is to take action. Not just sit in a chair anymore, not just pay lip service to it. But at the end of this, and the end of this day, and the end of this convention, you leave here with a fire inside you that wants to change things for the better. And that's what I hope to do. My name is Jason Shirre. I'm a private money manager for a select group of families and individuals. And I was a 3-time person running for government. I ran twice for the U.S. Assembly in New Jersey, and also for the U.S. Senate. Well, let me tell you a quick story. The year's 1987, and I'm in college, and I see a thing up on the bulletin board that a presidential candidate is going to come to my campus to speak. So, I didn't really have anything going on that day. I decided, well, why not? I'm in college. This is the time you're supposed to listen to all these different ideas. And I hop into an auditorium with a friend of mine, and we proceed to listen to this person speak. And as they're going through, it was almost as if a light bulb went off in my head. Because for my entire life, I kept thinking, hey, wait a minute. I was raised in a Republican family, and I had Democratic grandparents. And I have to be one of these. And then he mentioned this word. And the word was libertarian. And that candidate was Ron Paul during his first presidential run. And it was then that I realized that, what is this idea about a libertarian? I had never heard anything about it. If you even brought it up in a conversation for somebody that knew about politics, you know what they would say to me? Oh yeah, those are the ones with the hookers and the ones that talk about heroin. They never say, these are the people that want to give you your life back. These are the people that want to grant you freedom. I mean, presently today, with the amount of people that are in debt based on our national debt, currently close to $16 trillion, unofficially, the official, unofficial numbers, it could be above 50. Reach into your pocket right now and take out $14. And I want you to do that every single day, because that $14, that's your share of how much more money they're spending that we don't have. I mean, just think about that. That's $400 a month, $4,800 a year. That's how much the government is spending above and beyond its means. And you've heard Republicans and Democrats talk about this for years. They've constantly talked about how they're the ones to be in charge. And you want to know what you did? Maybe you voted for George Bush. And then he gave you prescription Medicare D and launched an unprovoked war, running the deficit up. And then you thought, oh, well, I'm going to vote for this Obama guy. He's an agent of change. And then you wake up and they put through NDAA. And the next time you go through the scanners at the airport, your 70-year-old grandmother is being felt up. And it should get you angry. You shouldn't get complacent with it. See, they want you to be complacent. The old story about the frog and the pot of boiling water. What does it mean? It means that if we do something to you gradually enough, you'll just get used to it and go along with the program. Well, I want to get you out of that mindset. I want you to think about this. And I want you to tell yourself that the mainstream media is not covering this. Now think about where I was back in 1987. I'm just a young college kid, I'm learning about things, and I start to go and I say, well, let me take an economics class. And all I've have is brainwashing of Keynesian economics that entire time. I didn't even know about the Austrian School of Economics until I got out of school. Now think about that. How can you expect this country to run when you have entire fields of economics and they're only teaching one Bible? And that's what's happening. That's what's got me so excited. It's not about the changes that took place when I was a kid are entirely different than what's going on today. Now think about the mainstream media. You know, now, when I was the very first person I actually heard talk about libertarian ideas was John Stossel. And then I caught a couple of clips of Milton Friedman. And then finally, you know, today we've got Judge Napolitano, who unfortunately was just taken off the air. But think about that for a moment. If you had said this a number of years ago, you know, there are kids right now, 20, 23 years old, that actually heard this stuff for the first time. And they don't have to waste all of this time relearning or getting into the whole program. It's out there for them. There was no Students for Liberty when I was a kid. There were no Young Americans for Liberty when I was a kid. But they're there today. So money donated to these causes helps save the future. Because these kids are smart. They know what's going on. They realize that the debt load that's coming upon them is going to actually make them indentured servants to the next generation. They may not have chains around their legs or their arms, but financially, their futures are going to be restricted in ways that we ourselves don't even know. Because we're not going to be around for it unless we turn the super tanker of debt around. And it's catching. This isn't something that's small. You know, I actually live in the town where Young Americans for Liberty are. And I meet these people. And it's not some kid who's a hippie, wants to smoke pot, and lives in his mother's garage. These are kids with economics degrees. These are smart people. Okay, the ideas of what libertarians were of the past, unfortunately, was tainted specifically by the mainstream media. And they use a technique, it's called marginalization. And what is marginalization? It's, I label you something and keep repeating it enough so that somehow it becomes part of an understanding. So for example, how many times have you heard somebody say, that Ron Paul, oh yeah, he's got a lot of ideas, but he's a kook. Well, who's the person that first said kook? You know what I think is kooky? I think it's kooky that I got to spend $14 a day in debt that I don't have. I think it's crazy that we have troops in Japan and Germany over a half a century after the war ended. I don't like this idea, okay? Because when I sit there and I look across the street and I look at some neighbor in my town having a problem, I'd rather help them than help somebody on the other side of the world. Because usually what happens when we help a lot of these people, you end up with a situation like we do in Egypt right now. Who knows what their government's going to look like? You think they're going to be friendly to us after we've been bribing them for $4 billion per year over the last 40 years or so? These are big numbers, and they have big changes, and they have long-term repercussions that are going to be felt throughout that. Now the thing is, what did people do? If you want to have a fun time, just Google Ron Paul censorship, and you can see multiple polls. They would ask people questions like, who do you want to vote for in the election? And then they just leave them off the poll. They would have discussions with people. They leave them out of a debate. And this happens over and over and over again. One of the reasons I firmly believe that Gary Johnson was not included in any of the Republican debates was because if there's two people on the stage calling for the same things, you can't say it's just one lone kooky guy. Two people on the stage saying, we should be a Department of Defense, not the Department of Offense. We follow a non-interventionist policy rather than an interventionist policy. That changed things. You know, you heard Newt Gingrich start talking about the Federal Reserve. You heard Rick Santorum sit here trying to talk about somehow balancing the budgets and stuff. I mean, think about this for a moment. These are the exact career politicians that everybody and their brother says they don't want, but suddenly now when it comes down to it, those are the ones that they're going to vote for. And I hear it from people on the left too. The people that are so cared about their civil liberties. Well, think about this. Again, if the government labels you a traitor, of course there's no definition of what this traitor or terrorist type of person can be. They can put a brown bag over your head, take you off to some foreign country, torture you, do whatever they want to, not even report it. Oh, and then you have no legal grievances against them. Hell, we might not even hear of you again. But the problem, though, is that's the way it starts. It starts small, because remember, it's just those bad people. And then how do you know maybe some friend of yours, sold some pot? And he ends up in a situation like that, because maybe the next thing you know, drug dealers that sell little dime bags on the corner of the street are going to be labeled terrorists. Let me tell you a quick story about banking. And we'll talk to you about the mainstream media. I want you to think about this really hard. This past summer, Wachovia Bank, which is now part of Wells Fargo, was fined $161 million for laundering Mexican drug cartel money. You want to know how much it was? It was